Good afternoon, everyone. This is Caitlin from TechServe Alliance, and welcome to today's webinar, Effectively Increase Margins and Fees. There will be a question and answer session after the presentation, so feel free to write in any questions you want answered in the question box on the right side of your screen. We are also recording today's presentation, which will be available to TechServe members on the TechServe Alliance website and will be sent out in follow-up emails. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Barb Bruno. Barb.
Thanks, Caitlin. And as usual, I just love doing these calls for TechServe members. And I think today's topic is extremely important for everybody that's on this line. And I love how many people have signed up today. And that shows that this is an area that most recruiters and most account executives are not necessarily the most comfortable with. But before I get into the program today, I just want to have a short discussion with all of you because I speak about 40% of my speaking right now are to your end users. I speak in front of large organizations. I speak in front of conferences. I speak at the CEO conference. I speak at technology conferences. And the subject of fees and margins always comes up because normally at these conferences, I'm the only one from our profession there. Most of the time it's talent acquisition professionals, it's hiring authorities, and then they invite me and they kind of look at me as the fox in the hen house. But they've confided in me over and over again how easy it is for them to get recruiters or account executives to negotiate their fee. They said, Barb, it's almost like let's make a deal. When they quote margins to us, when they quote fees to us, we just ask to see what's behind door number 2 or 3, and we just always try to negotiate. That's human nature. But what I want you all to think about for just a moment is you work for a company whose owner is in business to make a profit. Every time you negotiate your fees or you negotiate your margins, you're cutting into the profit that your company is making. But more importantly to you, because I'm addressing you today, every time you negotiate a margin or you negotiate a fee, you're negotiating your income because you're paid based on not, gross sales. You're based, your commissions are often based on margins of profit. And so think about that for a moment, that every time somebody asks you to negotiate, what they're asking you to do is make less money. And when you realize that, you might not be as apt to want to negotiate when you realize it really does impact your income. And I want you to think about something for a moment. Like I just got back from speaking at a resort. And it was amazing. And they put me up in this, really nice suite because I was their speaker. I could imagine if I would have gone into the hotel and said, you know what, I would rather than have my suite, I would want your presidential suite. But I don't want to pay any more money. I can imagine what the hotel's response would have been back to me. Like, why would you think for a minute you've already got a great suite? Why would we upgrade you to the presidential suite and you're not willing to pay more money? Well, your candidates, the hard to find contractors like .NET developers and Java people, and so many of the people you place are the presidential suite of candidates. And yet you're pricing them as if you're staying in a studio in some cheap hotel. We can't go any place and tell other people what we want to pay when prices are set. Why should people feel like they can negotiate what you and I quote as prices? That's always amazed me that people think that they can tell us what we're worth, because in reality, they shouldn't be able to do that. Now, if you're working with a VMS client, you're working with certain arrangements where pay rates and bill rates are basically quoted up front, there's nothing you can do about that. But when you're not under one of those situations, you've got to be really confident. But to be successful, if you want to negotiate higher margins or fees, you absolutely have to be confident when you're discussing the costs involved in utilizing your services. And, I've been in this profession more than 30 years, and I want to tell each one of you, you are worth every penny that these clients are paying you. You are in a candidate-driven marketplace. We have never been, in a situation where there's such a need for direct hires and such a need for contractors. And this has been going on now for close to 3 years. But clients can sense and will take advantage of you if you're not comfortable with the pay rates or fees you're quoting. They can tell you're not comfortable. If you believe that you need to reduce your bill rates or fees to compete, Because if somebody is only buying on price and they're not buying on quality, you have to ask yourself, is that a client you really want to be representing? You know, you may not want to be Nordstrom's, but you don't want to be, you know, Walmart. You don't want to be known as the cheapest place out there. They also will take advantage of you if you just negotiate your bill rates or fees too fast. I was just recently at a CEO conference and I was having dinner with some CEOs of major companies, and they admitted to me, they go, Barb, we hear such funny stories like, you know, people will quote rates and will go, well, you know, your competitors are much less. Well, how much are they paying you? And we'll quote some ridiculous rate and the recruiter will go, okay, then we'll match it. And basically we've given them a rate that we've never gotten before. So if you're willing to negotiate, you know, you may think, oh, I've got to negotiate to get this business. What it is you're losing your credibility because you don't think you're worth what you're charging, and you are. But you're only worth what you're charging if you're presenting the best talent out there. You can't send clients C and D candidates and be charging rates as if you sent a top-notch A candidate. So if you're going to negotiate high rates, then you also have to be recruiting, you know, the top talent that's out there. But you can't be so quick to negotiate. And I understand that, you know, often you're just trying to meet your numbers. You know, you've got certain ratios, you've got certain KPIs, you know, your owner is giving you certain goals that you have to achieve. And sometimes you're thinking that, well, deep discounting will at least let me write as many contracts as I'm supposed to write. But I'm telling you, when you bring in business and the pay rate is not competitive, you know, the margin is just, your recruiters are going to look at that and go, you know, how are we supposed to recruit on this when this isn't even competitive? If you're bringing business in and your recruiting team rolls their eyes, they're not rolling their eyes to make you upset. They're not coming back at you because they don't like you. They're basically trying to tell you that the business you're writing is not competitive. You can't afford to bring business in where the pay rates are so low because you've quoted such a low bill rate that they can't find candidates to fill the openings. And again, you're not judged on the amount of business you write. I mean, yes, you have to hit certain KPIs and you've got certain minimum standards you have to hit as far as the amount of business you bring in, but you're really judged on the business that's filled. You know, so you want to make sure that you're quoting high rates, you're quoting high margins, so that when you bring the business in, that your recruiters can easily fill it and your owner is making profits and you're making the income that you deserve to make. I think when you realize when you reduce rates that you're negotiating your income, it puts a whole different light on your willingness to negotiate. Because now you realize it's impacting you and it's impacting the people you love because you're not making what you should make. Clients can sense your uneasiness a mile away, and they will take advantage of you throughout the negotiation process. And you know you negotiate 6 or 7 times throughout, you know, your filler placement process. And so you've got to position yourself as a strong negotiator from your first conversation. Again, your owner's in business to generate profits. You're responsible for profitable business each time you're involved in negotiations. That's your job. Now, I want to give you 9 strategies, specific strategies that are going to help your clients realize that the cost involved in providing top talent is really a wise investment that will provide them with a measurable return. I always find it funny when I'm talking to hiring authorities. And I was just yesterday, I spoke to the Rotary in my own city. And it was so funny because they were talking about the exorbitant rates that we charge for contractors. And I said, what do you think we do when you give us contracts, you know, to fill, or you're giving temporary agencies temporary assignments? What do you think we do after we write the business? And it was so funny because this was a regional Rotary event that I was speaking at, and they were all under the opinion that you and I have this magic database back at the office, and all we do is rewrite business, and then we go in and our recruiters make a couple phone calls and they talk to people that are already in our database that have the exact skill sets they need, and then we just call them and we charge them a lot of money for doing that. And so I had to educate them about how this has been a candidate-driven marketplace for, 3 years now? and that they're having a hard time filling positions, but we also have a hard time. There is a great effort that goes into us finding talent. Sure, we could fill all the openings they give us if they're willing to take, less than great candidates. But if they want that top talent's not on the market long. And so I think that we've got to educate clients a little bit more on why you're worth what you charge. Because just between you and I, people really don't care what they pay. And I know you don't believe that, but they really don't. When I sit down and talk to these, hiring authorities, what they want is a return on the investment. If you're going to charge me a high bill rate, then you better send me outstanding candidates. You can't send me consultants that are borderline, consultants that can't do the job, consultants that don't have the certifications they need or want. If you're going to charge high margins and full fees on the direct side, you got to send me rock stars. And if you think your clients aren't hiring fast enough or they're being too picky, you're not giving them the quality they want. And that's why they hedge on paying fees, because way too many contract staffing firms are not sending out quality. They're sending out the best person they can get versus getting on the phone, getting out there, networking, and finding the best person available. And so again, you've got to believe that you've got the best people, and that's why you're worth every amount of money that you charge. But let me give you 9 strategies. The first strategy is I believe you should share expectations in writing with your clients to show what they can expect from you. This can increase their perceived value of your service. See, their perception of what you're worth is their reality unless you change that reality. And we started sharing written expectations over 10 years ago. And when they saw all that they can expect from us, when they saw our process and everything we do to try to surface the top talent they want to hire, they were shocked. They were shocked by everything that we do. And part of the expectations, we also share in writing what we need from them to fill their contracts and fill their direct orders. So you don't say, this is what I expect from you. This is what you can expect from me, and put this in writing, okay? And include your personal brand in the expectations. Give them an idea of your track record. What have you done for other people? How many, if they give you a contract, for .NET developers, and you say, we've placed 17 .NET developer contractors in the last 30 days, I want to work with you, because if you're successfully placing what I need with other people, I want to work with you. So share your personal brand in the expectations. One of your expectations could be, you can expect the same results I've given to your competitors. For instance, we've placed, and give them your track record. And then part of this is what I need from you to fill the business that you're going to give me. And you have to talk about the competitive rates. If you're not paying a competitive rate, we can't get you top talent. We can get you average, but we can't get you great. And these written expectations, confused buyers don't buy. If they know what to expect up front, if they see everything you're doing in writing, it's an instant differentiator. We just had a brand new client call in at the beginning of this week, like Monday, and we instantly shared them expectations, and they called my person back and said, we've never gotten anything like this before. Like, do you always do this? And we said, yes, because every staffing firm out there, every contract staffing firm, every retained firm, I don't care what segment anybody's in or what niche, we all conduct our businesses differently. Your business reflects your owner. It reflects your manager. It also reflects your personality and your level of commitment that you bring to the table. And as a result, everybody's confused because they can call you and you conduct yourself one way, they call your competitor, they do it totally different. What sharing written expectations does is it eliminates confusion, because a confused buyer doesn't buy, and this shows them the value. This changes their perception when they see all the things that they can expect from you. And another thing I put on there is what I need from them. I need you to give me interviewing times. At the time that we write a contract, I want to know when you're available to interview. I want to know your exact target date to fill this contract or to fill this job. I want the name of an alternate person I can talk to if you're not available, because I'm going to take my direction from you. And when you're telling them what you need from them, you're showing them always how it benefits you. If you give me a target date to fill this, then I'm not going to start too quick or I'm not going to start too late. Timing is everything, especially the really great candidates are not on the market longer than 10 days. And so we've got to know when you're ready to interview and when you're ready to hire. So anything you tell them you need from them, you show them the benefits to them. Number two, you've got to quote your rates or fees with confidence. There is a tremendous shortage of top talent, which increases the value of what you do. It doesn't decrease the value of what you do. I did some in-house training for a company last week, and I'm telling you what happened was everybody at the company, there were 35 people in this company, and everybody from that worked in sales, that was doing account executive work, and even the people that were the account managers, they all believed that they had to reduce their rates to get new business and to keep the business they had. And it was interesting because I don't know who started it, but somebody in the office started it and everybody bought into it. And I actually had them making calls, and I actually showed them the value of what they did. And I'm telling you, by the time I left, they were upset with themselves and said, you know what? I said, think of all the money you didn't make in the first 7 months of this year because you were so willing to negotiate your rates. And they go, Barb, we've never equated reducing our rates to reducing our paychecks. And I said, well, that's exactly what you're doing. And again, clients don't care about the price if you're giving them a return on their investment. There are some companies, and I would totally agree with you that there are some companies that will always go with the cheapest, with the cheapest quote. But again, is that a company you want to do business with? There are just as many companies out there that are willing to pay for quality. Number three, you've got to position yourself as a consultant. When you're perceived as a consultant who is a workplace expert, your rates and fees will increase. And that's what you should have on your LinkedIn profile, that you're a workplace expert, that's who you are, that's what you do. If the only time you talk to your clients is when you're making money off of them, you're a vendor. If you're never giving them advice, your firm belongs to TechServe Alliance. If you were not a member of TechServe, you would not have access to my training, okay? These calls are only for TechServe members. As a TechServe member, TechServe Alliance conducts massive surveys. They do all kinds of studies that you can share with your clients. There's all types of information. You've got to do this. It's when information that you're separating yourself. You don't want to always just call on people and talk about things that are going to make you money. You've got to make their job easier. You've got to inform them of things. And as a TechServe member, you've got access to so much information. Even if you're just quoting some of the stuff that Ellen Below shares with TechServe members, you've got information where your vendors, where your companies that view you as a vendor, they're going to start now realizing, wait a minute, you really know what's going on in the workforce. You know what's going on in the workplace. And see, when they know you know what's going on, they're more likely to listen to you and they're more likely to increase the rates they pay. If you're just going there as a vendor and please, please, please do business with me, and they say that your competitors are paying less and you match the rate, which by the way is usually they give you a rate much lower than they're paying anybody. Now they giggle when you walk out the door. They giggle when you get off the phone thinking, boy, did I get them. And then you take that business to your office and your recruiters look at you like, we can't find candidates at that rate. So you've got to start considering yourself. You are a workplace expert who should be serving as a consultant to every one of your clients. Your clients should be talking to you when you're not working on active contracts. If they've got an issue at work, you've got to be their sounding board. You've got to be viewed differently. You can't be just viewed as a person, gee, if I need a contractor, I need a direct hire, I call this firm. No, if they've got an issue at work, you should be the person that they call. Number four is please understand the benefit to you if you generate increased margins and profits. When you understand the what's in it for me, you're going to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and master the art of negotiating. You should read books on negotiating. You should become a great negotiator because most of our job is negotiating. That's what we do constantly. And you've got to let your clients know, I am a great negotiator. Your recruiters have to let candidates know, I am a great negotiator. I am not going to leave money on the table, but I'm not going to let you miss top talent because we don't have a high enough pay rate, and therefore you're going to get average. I don't want to put my reputation on average, and I don't think you want to hire average. You've got to be really comfortable when you're discussing rates. I love whenever we hire someone new and they're talking, they sound really confident, and then we get down to quoting, a rate or a fee, and all of a sudden their voice, they're mumbling, well, our fee that we charge, and you can barely understand them because that personality and that confidence and everything of selling how we can benefit them goes away the minute they start discussing the price involved, and you're worth it. Every one of you have to realize that you should not be working reduced price business. You're talented. You're worth more than that. And you've got to go out there and feel very confident about that. Number 5, if you're doing any direct hires, please negotiate a conversion fee for everyone who converts to a direct hire. Anybody in my firm who goes from contract to hire, we charge a flat 25% fee because you're losing your revenue generator. And you've got to negotiate these things up front. And by the way, another point I want you to make, and I don't know if I wrote this as part of the program today, but anytime your contract extends, and often these contracts are extended when they like your person, you have got to negotiate an increased bill rate every time a contract's extended. Because you know what happens if you don't? So say they want to extend the contract 6 months. You go back to your contractor, and what does the contractor want? They want more money because they know if they take a new contract, they're going to increase their pay rate. And so too often what happens is the contract is extended and the pay rate is increased, but the bill rate is not. So guess who that impacts? It impacts your owner who's making less money and you. You're making less commissions because you didn't negotiate an increase up front anytime a contract's extended. So always negotiate a conversion fee on any people that go direct, and always negotiate a higher, bill rate if anytime and every time a contract is extended, they have to pay you a higher bill rate because you know that the contractors or consultants are going to want to have an increase. And I see too many people negotiating that higher pay rate and not negotiating a higher bill rate, and it's hurting every person involved. It's hurting your owner, it's hurting your business, and it's hurting you. And I want you to make the money that you deserve to make. Number 6, don't wait for business to be called in. You've got to go out and get business from clients who are going to pay the margins and profits you deserve. And you might be sitting there saying, you know what, we're not filling all the business we have. But how much business that you write should have been turned down? This is a very competitive marketplace. And I want you to go back to the beginning of this year, and I want you to look at every contract and every order you wrote and how many of them were a big fat waste of your recruiter's times. They were purple squirrels. They were Mission Impossible. The pay rate and bill rate were ridiculous. You knew you shouldn't write the business the minute you were getting the business from the client. You got to stop doing that. And you've got to go out there and you've got to represent the companies that your candidates want to work for. And you've got to get leads from your recruiters. Your recruiters have inside information about every company that these contractors have worked for. And they know where they want to work and where they never want to work. And so you've got to really align yourself with the recruiting team. And you've got to know what business to go out after, because the worst thing you could do is get all excited and bring a new account in. And maybe the margins and the fees are really good. And all of a sudden your recruiting team looks at you and said, nobody wants to work there. Like they've got a terrible reputation. You've got to know that. Make sure your recruiters are asking, where do you want to work and why? Where would you never work and why? That why is information you're not going to find anywhere. And hopefully you've got Google alerts set up on every one of your current clients, and you're setting up Google alerts for every potential client that you want to do business with. And just have them go directly into a folder with that client's name on it. Because when you're doing a sales call, you've got to know the latest thing that's been, said about them on the internet. You've got to know the press and media. You've got to know what's going on. And so often Google alerts give you hiring triggers. And that's why it's so important. You should never, ever make a cold call. You should be making warm, informed calls based on the research you've done. So you're going out and getting the business from clients who are going to pay you what you're worth. And they're also the clients that candidates want to work for. Number 7, you've got to target prospects that you know represent your best business as a result of revenue modeling that you've conducted, because these targets are more likely to pay higher margins and profits. So what jobs do you write that are filled? Okay, so if I'm going to target somebody and I know this is somebody that I have a really good chance of writing orders with that are going to be high margins and high fees, and I know my recruiters are going to fill it, what are those titles? So when you're going back and you're studying the business you wrote and the business you filled, what were the titles that you're placing? Because if you bring in a job title, and I'm a recruiter and I've never heard the title, I've never worked on it, there's nobody in my database, I don't understand it, I'm probably not going to work on it. Or I'm going to pretend I'm working on it because I'm going to work on something that I know I can fill, that I understand. So you've got to know your best targets. Who are your best targets? You know, who's going to give you the business where they're going to write the same titles? You know, your new targets should mirror your best clients. What business are they giving you? What industry are they in? You know, what are they paying? What size company? Know who your best clients are and try to replicate them when you're out there landing new clients. Number 8 is focus a portion of your marketing presentations toward referred prospects, because referred business usually results in higher margins and profits, and also they're going to make quicker decisions. And you know why? Because there's an inferred level of trust and rapport because they were referred to you by someone they trust. If you have been in this business longer than, say, 18 months, 40% of your new clients should be referred clients. And if they're not, you really need to ask yourself, why not? You know, and I know in the study guide of the certification program, we really get into deep, you know, how do you develop a client referral program, you know, and how do you really dramatically increase your referrals? The training I'm giving you today is a very small portion of what's involved in the study guide for certification that I also wrote. And the certification study guide is all best practices in every area of what you and I do for a living. And when I do these calls represent maybe 2% of what's in that study guide that you learn when you get certified. But again, you know, if most of your new clients are not coming from referrals, then you're doing something wrong. And when somebody's referred, it's just better business, because someone told them you're great, and so you don't have to tell them how great you are. They've already been told that. Now you just have to prove by your results that you really were worth that referral. And you've got to do something to recognize the people that give you referred business, because even if it's a simple thank you, we donate to the person's favorite charity in their name if somebody gives us, you know, business that we then fill. But you've got to come up with something. If you're not getting referred business, are your clients really that satisfied? You've got to be very, very, you know, intuitive and know that you're providing the level of service where people will talk about you to other people. Number 9, and my last tip, is you've got to be very, very cautious when clients provide you with their contract versus signing yours, because these documents are almost always not in your best interests. But one thing I want you to know is you can cross out sections of these contracts, initial them, and clients will still utilize your services. And this is something obviously that you need to discuss with your manager or your owner, but I'm going to give you an example. Our biggest client had us do an RFP, and this was probably 5 years ago. And this RFP was the most ridiculous document I had ever seen, but new people were in charge. And so it was like a 200-page RFP. Then they invited us in to make a presentation in front of a group. And so when I got in the lobby, everybody had PowerPoint presentations and laptops and all of this, and I had nothing. I took nothing with me. And when I walked in the room, they asked me, well, Barb, are you going to do a PowerPoint? What are you going to do? And I said, well, no. And I said, I sent the RFP. And they go, well, so did your competitors. And I said, I understand that. But the only thing I'm submitting to you are all the people that we've placed in full-time jobs with you and all the contractors that we've placed with you in the last 5 years. And here's a list of all the current employees that are still working here, through us, that are all, they're all completing their contracts. They've all got great tenure with your company. And so the only thing I brought in addition to the RFP was a list of all the people we've placed with your company. And they go, but aren't you going to do a presentation? And I said, no, the presentation was the RFP. I'm just here to find out what's missing. Like, what challenge are you facing that you're doing this, that you're going through this process? What's most important to every person at this table? Because I'd love to know what's most important to each of you. And then I know where to position myself and what questions to ask. I don't know what to present because I don't know what initiated this RFP and these meetings. So what's most important? The interesting thing was, The first person went, the second person went. I addressed what their greatest concerns were. By the time the third person gave me what was most important to them, the first three were arguing about what was most important. And I said, so if you're observing what's going on in this room, this is part of the problem. You guys aren't all on the same page. And if you're not on the same page, it's very difficult for someone like me to know how to position myself to help you. And they were like, oh my God, and so all of a sudden they started having this discussion. And so about 10 minutes later, I said, you know what? I worked for you for over 15 years. Where can I go to just get some of the additional work that you need filled? Where can I meet with somebody to just start working on these additional jobs that you need filled? And they all started laughing, and they said, what's really funny, Barb, is the other people gave us all these great presentations, but nobody asked for the business. And they say, all right, go down. And I went to, someone's office, and they gave me like 17 contracts and 2 direct orders. And there were still people out in the lobby that were still going to do their presentation to this group. They also gave me a contract. And the reason I brought up this example was part of the RFP was they gave us their new contract. I had crossed out and initialed about 40% of the contract. And in the meeting, what they said to me was, you were the only person that crossed anything out on the contract, Barbara, and you crossed out quite a bit. We thought everybody would, and we're kind of surprised that your competitors, didn't they read this thing? And I said, you and I both know some of the stuff that you asked for is an absolute deal breaker. And they said, between us, Barbara, all your competitors did not cross out anything, but we're okay with what you crossed out. Now, I have to admit to all of you on this phone, I crossed out more than I wanted, because I thought they'd negotiate with me. So I crossed out things that I was sure they'd come back to me, and then I'd negotiate and give them some stuff back. I've learned you can always negotiate down. You can never negotiate up. So I always ask for more than I want. They agreed to everything. And so when they give you the contract, don't forget, you can cross some of that out and they'll still do business with you. It's just, you've got to believe in who you are. And I've met many of you. When I look at the names of the people on this call, I'm at every TSA conference. I speak at the conferences, I interact with the members. And boy, I'm telling you, the members of TSA, you're just all a cut above. You work for a firm that is one of the best firms in the country, or they wouldn't be a member of TSA. And you wouldn't be doing your job. You wouldn't have been hired if your owner didn't think you were great. Now, you've got to believe it. And you've got to believe you're worth every, I don't want to say penny, every dime, every dollar that we charge. You're worth what you charge. And don't let anybody feel that they can tell you what you're worth, because they can't. Just like you can't go and use any other organization or business and negotiate up front and tell them what you're willing to pay. But you've got to be confident. Again, I said earlier in this presentation, they can smell it a mile away if you're not confident in what you're negotiating. And I'm going to give you one thing that I do all the time. When people say, well, how about this first time around, Barb, because we don't know you, and, just this first time around, would you negotiate lower? And I go, I would love to, but let me explain something to you. I'm a very fair business person. And why would I give you a better rate than I'm giving my best client, who's hiring a large number of people from us every month? I cannot give you a better rate than my best client is paying me. And just so you know, when you become one of my best clients, I'm never going to give somebody else a better rate than I would give you. You can take that to the bank. You can trust me that you're not paying me one rate and somebody else is paying me something else. I'm a very fair business person, but I cannot give you a better rate than we're giving our best clients. That's not good business. And that always gets to them, because they're like, you know what, that's a very good point, but you've got to know how to overcome. This is a price objection. And there's 20 other things you can say. And again, we cover objections very strongly in the certification study guide to tell you how to handle a lot of these price objections. But I hope that when you get back on the phones or you do your sales calls face to face starting this afternoon, you feel better about what you do. And you do not have to be the cheapest person out there. You don't have to be the cheapest person out there to get the best business, but you do have to provide them with the best talent. If you're going to charge the best rates, you better be giving them the best talent. But I guarantee you, I've given you 9 different ideas. If in fact you follow this advice, you will fill more of the business you write. And that's how you're judged. You're not judged on how many orders or how many contracts you write. You're judged on how many you fill. And when you're writing full fee, full margin business, and it's within your niche, and it's the titles you can place, that's when the business gets filled. Now, what I want to also mention here is if you have any interest in the certification program whatsoever, I feel the certification program does a few things. Number one, it gives you a competitive edge when you're in bidding because you can say our people are certified or you're certified. If your owner is not participating in the certification program, it's something every one of you could invest in yourself. And, you know, I have to ask you, if you go to a dentist, would you go to a dentist without a DDS? Or would you use an accountant without a CPA or a doctor without an MD? Of course not. And the people you place have how many certifications? Then why don't you? A certification is something you should have. If your owner is not engaged in the certification program, every one of you should make the commitment and contact TechServe Alliance and sign up and get certified. Also, imagine the knowledge, because it's best practices. There's two exams, one for recruiter, one for account executive. But then both exams give you industry practices as well as legal. But the beautiful part about the TechServe certification program, which is different than every other one out there, is 2/3 of it is best practices. It just makes you better at your job. It makes you feel stronger about what you do. You go out there more confident. There's a tremendous amount of differentiators throughout the entire program where you're just going to sound different and you're going to feel different. Because whatever you expect to happen, if you think you can do something or you think you can't, you're right. If you're listening to me right now and you think Barbara doesn't know what she's talking about because our clients in our geographic area will not pay these rates. It's interesting. I did some training in Kansas City, Missouri. I was in-house in Kansas City, Missouri for a company. And they were telling me how in Kansas City, they don't pay full rates. Well, I happen to have 3 training clients in Kansas City that are my training clients. So at lunchtime, I called them and I talked to the owners and I said, can you give me the margins you're getting and the fees you're charging right now? So after lunch, I went back to them and I said, well, I have 3 training clients in your city and they're all charging a lot more than you are and they're doing better than you're doing. So why is that? You know, so don't think that it's your geographic area. Half the time, the reason you're not getting fees and margins is you. It's not the market. It's not your clients. It's not the geographic area. It's not the companies you work for. And if your clients are all negotiating, then go out and get some new clients. There's a great need for what you do. Find people that are going to pay you what you're worth. I also do want to mention that the TechServe conference is in November. From the 7th to the 9th. It's in beautiful Bonita Springs, Florida. I will be there training. This year I'm doing something very different. I'm going to do 2 workshops. If anybody's on the line and you supervise, you're a manager of recruiters, I'm going to do a 2.5-hour workshop we're going to dig deep on how to manage recruiters and get the most out of them. And then I'm also doing a 2.5-hour session for recruiters. And these are workshops that you're going to have to sign up for in advance. But the conference is going to be great. If any of you are inclined to attend, now is the time to start signing up. And now what I want to do, now that I've done 2 commercials, and I hope some of you sign up for certification, I want to open the lines for questions. You can ask me questions one of 2 ways. You can go to the attendee list, and if you put in the PIN number, access code, and telephone number, you can click that little hand up toward the top of the control panel. It's like a white hand with green outline, and I can unmute your lines if you raise your hand. Or if you type in a question, down below, you see the word questions. If you go there, it opens a dialog box and you can type in any question. If you don't want me to say your name, I'll only use your first name, put anonymous or confidential, and I won't say your first name. So Tim has the first question. Are there any good ways to identify potential customers that pay market rates in your initial research? It takes time, and what you can do, you can find out this information, Tim, by seeing what pay rates contractors are making. And that's something recruiters can give to you. You know, because when the recruiters, you know, are interviewing people, they know what these people are being paid. And so it's really, you know, it's really an easy, you know, you get inside information from people that have worked at the different companies that you're targeting. That's one of the easiest ways. Any ideas on negotiating rates on VMS programs? No. Because Andy, with a VMS program, when you're working under a VMS situation, they've got a set pay rate and set bill rate, and they're not negotiable. That's why they set up a VMS. The only thing I want to say to all of you is, at the last CEO conference I was at, there were several companies there that were utilizing VMS, several VMS companies, and they weren't as happy as they thought they were going to be. They said our promise was that we were only going to have one contact, that they were going to negotiate better rates for us, and we didn't have to have all these other recruiting firms calling us, but they're not filling our jobs. And so sometimes we're having to go around the VMS to hire some of the talent we need because the VMS is not performing. So the only way that you can negotiate better rates if there's a VMS on site is if you're going around the VMS. You're not one of the VMS providers, but you know that they've got jobs that they're not filling, and you're very specialized, and say you've got cybersecurity people, or you've got people that are really, really hard to find, or AI people that they want to hire, that you might be able to negotiate around. But if you're working with the VMS, you've got to basically work within, they tell you not only the bill rate, they tell you what you're going to pay the candidate. So basically they're telling you what your margin is, which just drives me nuts. Like, how dare them tell us what our margins are? But anyway, what I also want you to really track is how many candidates are you submitting and how many are getting hired, and what happens to those candidates a year from now when they're no longer yours, because it's been over a year. Are they being placed by others and you provided the talent? You got to track the results you're getting with VMS clients. This is from Miles. You mentioned negotiating, extending increases, which makes perfect sense. Do you ever outline them in the original contract as a percentage of dollar increase, or only at the time of the extension? No, I'm negotiating extension increases right up front. So I am not trying to negotiate an extension increase when the extension comes. I'm telling them up front, this is our bill rate right now. If the contract is extended, we will increase our rate by 7%, because the average contractor right now is going to make at least 7% more every time they change a contract and go to work for someone else. So we're going to have to increase what we pay them by 7% if you extend their contract. So if in fact this contract is extended, now you don't have to use 7%. That's what I use. You can use whatever you want, but you've got to negotiate this up front, not when there is an extension, because what happens is then they say, well, no. But we're a good client and you never mentioned anything, so I want to extend them, but I want the same rate. And what most firms do is they go, oh, okay, and they increase the contractor's rate as little as possible to extend the contract, but they've killed their margin. So this has to go right up front. This is from Shannon. If a client gives you an ultimatum that your candidate is our top choice, but if you don't accept the bill rate, we're going to go to our second choice, how would you handle this? I would say, well, then you're going to have to go with your second choice. And if I've got a rock star, hopefully I'm sending my contractors to other people. You've got, the minute you've got a rock star and you've got someone who's really good, you should be writing similar job titles, contract titles, so you can send these candidates on 2 or 3 other openings. So market that candidate to your other clients. If they're a top choice and they're a really good contractor that's in high demand, you're going to place them with somebody else. You cannot let them say, it's your top choice, but. And I would come back and say, I would love to do this, and this is a shame, but I know we've got this contractor out on a couple other interviews, and I can't give you a better rate than I'm giving my best client. I just can't do that. So we're going to have to send this candidate to some of our other clients. I'm sorry. We can't negotiate. And I don't negotiate because, quite frankly, Shannon, every time I've said that, they've gone, well, okay then. And then within a matter of hours, they call me back and they pay our rate. Now, it doesn't always happen, but it almost always happens. You've got to, why would you sell somebody a Cadillac for the price of a Volkswagen? Why would you do that when you're representing Cadillac? You wouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of thank yous. Let me see. How long does certification take? This is from Julie. It'll take you 30 days to study from the time you sign up. And summer is a great time to take this exam. And again, you could take it online at your convenience. You should read the materials one time fast. Then you read the materials one time and take expansive notes. There's also a prep class that I recorded that basically shows you some of the key areas that you should basically focus on, and you could be certified by the end of August if you signed up now. And I will tell any of you, by the way, any of you listening to my voice right now, if any of you get certified by the end of August, this is what I'm going to offer for you. If any one of you sign up for certification and you get certified by the end of August, I will write a personal recommendation on your LinkedIn profile, basically expressing why you're certified and what an edge that gives you and what you've learned. But you have to sign up and get certified before the end of August. So if any of you listening to me right now get certified, or if any of you have level 1 and you take level 2, which all of you should do because that's case studies and it really shows your knowledge. The level 2 exam's tough. Same study materials, but the exam is much tougher because it applies what you've learned to case studies. So if any of you have taken level 1 and you take level 2 before the end of August, I will also write you a personal recommendation on LinkedIn. So just send it to the subject member and send it to my personal email address, which is bbruno@goodasgoldtraining.com, and just put testimonial in the subject line. So if any of you take the exam, you pass, I will give you a personal testimonial. Again, my personal email is bbruno@goodasgoldtraining.com, and just put testimonial in the subject line. I have one more question, which is confidential. What do you suggest with companies that have large volume business and provide tight margins and always want discounts due to volume? Price always seems to be the driving force in business decisions. I might give a discount for volume hires. I would never give a discount for volume business, for volume contracts or volume orders. So what I might do is say, after every 10th contract we fill, we will extend a $500 discount. Or on a direct fee, you might say, for every third hire we do in a quarter, we'll reduce our fee by a flat $1,000. I don't want to increase the margin. I would rather give a flat amount that I'm willing to discount after so many hires in a quarter. And it sounds bigger to them. It sounds like, wow, you'll reduce $1,000 off your invoice, or, whatever it's going to be. But I would do it for volume hires, not volume business, because, they might have 20 contracts open. You negotiate this ridiculously low price and you fill 2 contracts. So you had no volume. They had volume openings, but you had no volume fills, and you discounted your rates down to nothing. And so why would you do that? So I might, and we do discount on volume fills, or volume placements. And it's a flat amount. And you've got to look at what your margins are and obviously discuss this with your owner or manager. I don't discount for volume business. It's always volume hires, because that's how you and I are paid. We're not paid on the number of orders we write. We're paid on the number of orders we fill or contracts we fill. If you're going to discount anything, that's where the discount should be. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of thank yous. And, again, I would love to meet you. If any of you do go to TechServe in November, I am there to answer any questions you have. Pull me aside. I'm there to work, and I attend everything. So please pull me aside. I would love to see some of you in my 2 workshops. It's the first time that TechServe is going to do these deep dive workshops, which I think is a great idea. So I'd love to have some of you in either my recruiting or recruiting manager workshop. And again, I would love for you to sign up for certification, because it does make a difference. And if you liked this training, this is the exact kind of training that you're going to get when you sign up for certification. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sign off and put Caitlin on to see if there's anything else that she wants to add to our call. And again, thanks for attending, everybody. I know it's summer months, and I can't believe how many of you showed up, and showing up is the first step. Okay, Caitlin, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Barb. I just wanted to add very quickly that our next iteration of the 2018 certification webinar series is going to be on August 16th. It's titled, Who is Designing Your Life, You or Someone Else? So we'd love to have you tune in. As Barb explained, you can find out more about the certification program at techservealliance.org/certification. And I would also be happy to field any sort of calls that you send over to our number, which is posted right there, and the email as well. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
And Caitlin, I just realized I was supposed to promote the next webinar, because that topic sounds a little fluffy. Who's designing your life, someone else or you? But I'm telling you, this program can change your life. So if you're not surpassing goals every month, then you're not really designing your own life. You're not, you've got to consistently hit or surpass goals to earn the money you should earn. So even though that topic is a little bit fluffy, I would hope that you sign up, because that's going to be a great webinar. And Caitlin, I totally forgot to promote it, so I'm so glad you did. So sorry about that.
It's absolutely okay, Barb. All right. With that in mind, we'll look forward to your registrations. And again, everyone, have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.